Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the 1996 and 1997 SP football sets. SP needed to, well, in the mid-1990s, Upper Deck really needed to play around with SP and understand its place because the whole card market was changing a lot, and very much on the Upper Deck side as well. When Upper Deck created SP in 1993, they needed to reestablish themselves as the high-end card brand because in 1992, Ultra, and you could argue that also with Pinnacle, they surpassed Upper Deck, or at least caught Upper Deck. And even Pro Set Power was pretty strong as well. And then Action Packed was always right there, being a nuisance for Upper Deck in their attempt to be the high-end card. And so in 1992, when Topps dropped its finest card, there was no question Upper Deck was going to have to go back and reestablish itself as the high-end card. And what they created in 1993 with SP was a card that very much earned that right. Unfortunately, in 1994, they kind of fell back a bit when they chromed the surface of the card and tried to make a very simplistic, elegant card that may well have worked in 1994, but it's a design that does not have legs. In 1995, they did pull it back together and make a card that looks fantastic and has the care that you would expect for a high-end card. But by 1996, we had a slight changing of the guard because Upper Deck was now creating SPX, and that was going to be their high-end card. And what did that mean for SP? Now, SP still had a place in the hobby, which was the next tier up from Upper Deck. But the 1994 card certainly shows that Upper Deck's idea about SP was not that it was going to be a super elegant card. 1995 was a good design, it's just that it was a little bit simplistic and one that would not necessarily have legs down the road. And so in 1996, they designed a card that got very heavily into the design process, where the card's design is what dominates the card for the first time in SP's history. The card has a wonderful etching around the three borders of the card with a silver quality that just comes through in, it's both an interesting effect and also one that kind of buries the text, makes the text kind of difficult to read. But the part of the card that really is strong here is the marble on either corner of the border, which has a team color in a deep, rich marble color that provides the card with a strength of elegance as well as a team alignment that works so well here. Now, the background behind the player is a little bit chromed, which helps it to integrate better with the card, but it means that the cards are not as up front and forward as 1993 and 1995 had been. But still, the card does have a wonderful richness to how it's designed that makes the card certainly fit with the spirit of what SP was supposed to be. The card back, however, is a completely chromed surface, so it doesn't have any of the potential that the previous cards had on that front. But the card was designed to be a standalone card because they had already given up on parallels by the 1995 release of SP. So by 1996, we were deep in the stretch where they didn't have parallels for SP at all. And so this was a card that needed to be, it really needed to carry its own weight. And the card design was very strong in doing that. The rookies, though, this is where the card set really is different because they continued the tradition of kicking their card set off with a bunch of rookie cards. But unlike the 93 through 95 set where they took the background and they added a brushed metal effect over the surface of the background image, here they got rid of the background image and they have just a red foil on the card with an etched surface that has the logo for the theme of this subset. So it means that the players are much more isolated and the set is much more cohesive, but it also is losing some of the personal care that we'd seen in the previous sets. Still, 1996 had a feel to it that none of the previous sets had, where it really did look like it was an incredibly well designed card, very well executed, this certainly looked like exactly what SP was supposed to be, at least here in the mid-1990s. But it's the inserts with this set that really carry for the, well, since they didn't have parallels for this set, the inserts definitely had to do the heavy lifting, but they did a phenomenal job with them, starting off with HoloView. Now, the HoloView cards here are the cards that are almost entirely a hologram with a picture of the player in front of the hologram, but the hologram has a portrait bust of the player in the hologram and then a whole field of team logos that are floating in the background. And the depth of these cards is really, really impressive, in part because of the different things that are going on with a hologram that, let's face it, holds up even today. But then you have the team colors up at the top, which add to the way that the cards come across with, again, the team spirit, which is such a part of the set that is so integral to how we experience it. But this is the one place where they actually had a parallel, where all of these cards in this HoloView set were also released as gold cards with die cutting. They replaced the team color with gold foil for the top of the card. They have a slight arc cut into the bottom of the card, and then they have a contouring around the SP logo up at the top, and that is, it was a really good parallel. But they also did a card set that was a little bit more adventurous in terms of how they played around with technology, or not really technology as much as concepts, which is Focus on the Future, which looks at a bunch of young stars, both rookies and recent veterans. This is a card where they have a picture on one side with the background, they have the brushed metal effect surrounding him, but then the card has a progressive die cutting into what looks like a slide with an acetate window with a portrait of the player, and that slide looks like a slide enough that it is surprising how thin this card is, because it doesn't actually have a slide in it as much as it has an acetate back that's applied to the front, which has a window in it. So the card is kind of bewitchingly thin, which is a very interesting card to experience. But they also had a card set called Explosive, and this is a card where it has a kind of an X pattern because of the notches cut on either side, and then the background is a grayscale etched foil surface that is, it's a really nice tone that really helps to capture the spirit of the card. Then they have a window in the middle with a portrait of the player, but you'll notice down at the bottom it looks like there are jersey swatches in that X that's cut into the bottom of the card. And in reality, that's not jersey swatches. Upper Deck had just started doing jersey swatches in their equivalent football set in 1996. So they were just starting it. They were not doing it here with SP yet. So that window down at the bottom is actually, again, they have two parts that are applied together on a card, where they used a trick that Skybox was using with EXL over in basketball, where they have two different types of surfaces. So this window is a cut into the rough cardboard of the backing of the card. So if you turn the card over, the rough surface is there as well. But it is an interesting effect, and it is one that can, again, kind of throw you off and make you think that it might be a jersey swatch, which it frankly isn't. And then they have, for their last set, they have SPX Force. Now this is a bit misleading, because with SPX Force, this is something that was not released in SPX itself. This was released in SP. So think of it like a preview set for SPX. SPX Force is another holofoil. This basically is like a HoloView card. It's just a different theme. They have a die cutting up at the top for all the cards, and then blue bands or blue border on three sides with a thin gold border inside of that. But inside of that is a wonderful multi-layered hologram where they have a section of 4 boxes that's kind of Hollywood Squares style with portraits of 4 different players. Each of the 4 cards has 4 different players. And then the background behind is a bunch of SPX logos that are floating in space. But it's the depth of this card that is so impressive, because the amount of depth and how everything interplays is really rich and kind of haunting. And you add to that the blue foil for the SPX Force text up at the top, and it just creates so many layers that this is a card that is for me personally, kind of mesmerizing. But I will note about this, there is a version of this that is released for each one of the cards that's autographed. Now, there are not 16 autographs because there are 4 cards, 4 players each card, 16 total players are featured, but only 4 individual players, 1 for each card, autographed cards. So that means that if you're trying to collect one of these cards and get all the versions, there's only 2. There's the non-autographed version and there's the autographed version. The autographed version does have the congratulations on the back, as you expect. I'm not showing you one because I really wanted to get one, but they're still kind of expensive and I couldn't quite justify the cost. So we'll just have to go with this, but they do have an autographed parallel. So for 1996, the card set was kind of, well, they did a really good job of having enough simplicity and enough complexity and elegance to the card to really create what would probably be best considered the high watermark for SP, period, across its entire run. 1997 was a strange year. Like I said, this was a transitional time because Upper Deck needed to understand just what SP was going to be in a market where it was no longer their high end. And the 1997 set is kind of it's one of the card sets that kind of begins the end of the decade and millennium, as card companies were moving away from the spirit of the early and mid 90s that was really the key to the way the decade felt. And the 1997 set has kind of a desperate feel to it. Not like they're trying too hard, but like they can't figure out what they're supposed to be doing. The cards, right from the outset with the rookies, you can tell have such a different spirit to them because there's no etching, there's no brushed metal, none of that stuff. It is just a chromed surface, and it is such a busy card. It does a pretty good job of isolating the player, but there's so much going on, the player isn't very distinct. So it just doesn't feel anything like an SP card, but it also doesn't really feel like a high-end card. I mean, this is, if you were to look at this versus any other rookie of this player, this is probably the one you're going to forget. Even when you go onto the main set, the main cards in the set are more clear, the player's more distinct. But here they really kind of blurred the lines between the border and the image in a way that is not like a cool effect as much as what is even the design of this card. This is a set that doesn't really have a distinct design, a distinct look. If you were to just walk up to somebody who was an expert on 90s cards and ask them, what does the 1997 SP card look like? They're not going to be able to remember exactly. They'll remember a few little things, but for the most part, this is a card that is probably going to be forgotten for everybody, whether it's the rookie card or the main set card, because the distinct things about SP that were so much a part of the tradition were just completely lost here. And it, again, has a feeling that just doesn't fit in with the tradition that we were so used to heading up to it. So Upper Deck was already starting to transition into a weird no man's land that would be at its height in 1998. This is kind of the precursor to what was about to come. A very interesting set to appear. And once again, there are no parallels of these cards. Now, for the inserts, they didn't bother to do hollow view, which was too bad because that was a really good tradition. But they replaced it with profiles. And the profile set is one where the whole card surface, except for the player, the rest of the card surface has a hollow foil effect to it. And a little bit of gold foil on it, which is nice. But there's a big NFL shield as the main design for the card, and that's sitting on top of a gold football stand. So the theme is, you're not going to miss it on the front, but they really repeated it on the back more clearly, where instead of having the background of the player around the edges, here they just have it in black. But the card it's a really good card in terms of how bold and upfront it is. But again, it doesn't quite have the SP feeling, so it's an interesting approach. But this is a card set, this insert set is a card set that has parallels, plural. The main parallel is die cut, and it's as simple as that. They just did die cutting around the shield and the stand for the card, and they didn't change the foil color. They didn't change anything else. They just did the die cutting, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the reason I make that distinction is they also have another parallel of this, which is exactly identical, except down at the bottom on the back, they have a serial numbering out of 100. And that's the only way you can tell it, which means that if you want to know the difference between those two cards, the two parallels, you have to look on the back. Everything else is just kind of cookie cuttered. So again, the spirit of how SP had been working, it's just a very different feel. Thankfully, there is one thing that they did here in this set that definitely feels like it's part of the tradition, which is with autographs. Upper Deck was just getting into autographs apart from they had been doing their heroes autographs, and a couple of other autographs would just kind of appear in odd places. But to do an insert set that's dedicated to a bunch of autographs, that was pretty new to Upper Deck. Topps was just getting into it. They'd just gotten into it, and Upper Deck was now starting to get into it. Here with SP, it is their Sign of the Times cards. And these cards are fantastic autograph. Well, okay, this card isn't really showing it off because what I understand is the in packs, you didn't get the autograph, you got a redemption card. I can't verify that because I didn't open any packs of 1997. So I'm going on what I've been told, but from what I understand, they only did redemption cards in packs. I'd love to know if it's different, and I'll let you know in the comments below if I do find out that they had different versions. But every single card does have a redemption version, as well as the main autograph is obviously without the sticker on the front. It is just a straightforward card, which is just fantastic looking. Some of the best autograph cards, period, across the board. They did a fantastic job of designing them, and I absolutely love it. Now, they also did another version of this, which instead of being Sign of the Times, it was called Mark of the Legend. And Mark of a Legend is legend cards as opposed to current NFL stars. And they had some really good football players featured here in this set. These cards also have the redemption version, and then they have the autograph version. And I will note about the redemption version, that sticker looks like it would easily peel off. The ones that I have, they don't seem to peel off very well, and I haven't wanted to work too hard to try to get them off to see if it was just a clean card underneath. They feel, though, like they're fixed well enough onto the surface that it would probably destroy the card if you could even get them off. I really don't know, but regardless, with both Sign of the Times and with Mark of a Legend, there are two versions of every single card. There are, I think there might be another version of one or two of these cards. I'll let you know in the comments below if that's the case. But at any rate, that is the core to the set. But there is one other insert set that is very, very, very difficult to get, which is Timelines. This is a small set of cards with autographs on them of legends, and it is rare enough that these cards are, if you do find them, they go for a lot of money. So they're very difficult to come by, to the extent that I don't even consider them to be really worth collecting. They're not one of ones, but they have kind of that feeling for a 1997 card. So if you're able to get one of these, congratulations. I'm really proud of you. I couldn't even get anywhere close to getting one of these and prepping for the video. And this is actually the card that is the reason I spent this long waiting, just to see if I might get a chance. And I gave up waiting and finally did this video I think it's been 4 years since I did the first video. So it's been a long wait to see if I can get a chance, and no. So that is the official release cards for both of these releases. But there is one other thing to talk about, because in packs of 1997, there was a preview card, a promo card with Troy Aikman on the front, advertising the upcoming Power Deck, which we wouldn't see until 1999. But these cards are Power Deck cards. So if you put this into your Windows 95 computer, you would be able to actually see whatever interface they built into these cards. But there are three versions of this card, and it is different jersey numbers or jersey colors. So the main jersey is a regular blue jersey. The second one, which is more difficult, is the Pro Bowl. And then the hardest one is a white jersey that's serial numbered out of 500 that I've only seen a picture of one time. I've been trying to track one of these down. I can't. So there are certainly some limitations. But at any rate, that was something you would also find in packs that's not an official part of the set, but it's adjacent to the set. And that is 1996 and 1997 SP. Now, 98 would continue on with the 97 tradition with a possibly better designed card. They get back into parallels, and they would be trying to... 1998 was really a weird no man's land for Upper Deck. They had a tough time with it. I'm going to look at that in another video, but 1997 really did do a good job of setting up what we would see in 1998, so at least there's that. So other than that, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I do urge you to do so. If you haven't seen the previous SP video for 93 through 95, I have already done that, so that's sitting around for you to watch if you care to. And yeah, other than that, thank you guys for watching.